Welcome back. Now is the time for us to continue on our robot that was using the article directory to allow us to sign up to it. Remember, we did this in the last video. If you haven't watched this video, please go back to the video before and go through this and watch this. And at the end of the actual sign up, there was an email being sent to the email address that I gave the system. Now it's time for us to confirm that email. I've created a new tab here. I've just created 3 text boxes. I'm going to fill in the credentials. And as I mentioned before in the previous video, I'm using my cPanel for the email. Okay, so there the credentials are in. I can go to the debugger here. Okay, we're still seeing some old stuff here. Let me just clear that. Okay, so I've cleared the erroneous data out of here so we can work with the clean running bot. The information is intact. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you today how to collect your emails and verify them using 2 methods. One of them is a very much out of the can automated way to do it, and I'm going to show you another way which is not as much out of the can and seems a little sloppy, but it's a way to do it as well. And the reason why I'm showing you that is because the one command at this point in time of filming is just a little shaky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we're just not sure why yet. So the developers are working hard to solve the problem, but I'm going to show you both methods, so when the problem is solved you can use either one and life is good. In the future I'm going to show you a third way, which is actually my preferred way to collect emails. It works every time and it's very clean, but it's a little advanced at this point in time. It requires me to teach you the theory of regular expressions, and that's pretty meaty, so I'm going to hold off on that until I give you a bit of a tutorial on regular expressions, and then we'll start diving into another way to collect emails. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is I have to teach you about tables. Way back when I did make mention about tables, but I never showed you what a table is. I showed you what variables were and what a list was and the functions associated with those 2 types of storage mediums. This is the third type in Ubot, and that's a table. Now I'm using Excel to show you a visual representation of what a table is going to look like. What's going to happen is if we have a table, it's literally a 2-dimensional array of places to store information. We can store numbers, text, anything we want to, just like a list. But the list functions and the table functions are different. They are like 2 different tools in the toolbox. There are some things that do overlap a little bit, but tables have their own purpose, and you're going to see why tables are so powerful today. Okay, so if we were looking at this, and if this was Ubot, this would be column 0, column 1, column 2, etc., etc., etc. This would be row 0, row 1, row 2, etc., etc., etc. So that's how visually a table works. Okay, pretty simple. Now let's go back here. To access the commands, there's actually 2 places where we can find email commands. First of all is in the commands folder underneath email commands. These are the ones we're going to be working with today. Another place are email functions, and these are going to be commands that we're going to be working with on a future date. Right now, don't worry about these at this point in time. We can do lots of advanced things with emails, which is really awesome. But for what we're trying to do today, these commands here will suffice. When we're working with a table, we can use a clear table. You see we have the clear list. We also have a clear table, and I can drop that in there. Really important that we always clear our table before we use a table, and you're going to see how we're going to use the table in just a second. Okay, it's the same idea. If we were using a table and one of these commands is actually going to grab our email and insert it into a table, and if we don't clear it, every time we run the command, it's going to just populate more and more into the table. So we're going to create a table with data that doesn't really exist. First command we're going to use to go to our emails is connect to mail server. Now right off the kick it comes up with the wizard. Now I'm going to show you here. I can't go in and select, I can't get in and get the variables. Okay, so we have to, if we want to actually test, and it's great to test, we have to actually put the information in manually, which I will do for you right now. Do you have to do this every time? Absolutely not. If you want to, you can just click OK and leave it as it is, and we can put the information in later. But I think it's important you see this information at least once. Okay, so there's a few more settings here. The connection type. 9 times out of 10 you're going to have a POP3 connection, and the SSL is going to be off. POP3 is a very popular protocol used on the internet for getting email. Other protocols are IMAP and SMTP. This is more for, as you can see, it's for sending emails. More than often than not, though, POP3 is going to do what we need to do. Now, if we select, now I want you to watch down here the port, okay? If we select SSL, you notice that changes. Now, that's important to recognize because when we manually put the settings in here, that's not going to happen for us. And we have to remember these things. So the SSL port, or the encrypted port for POP3, is at 995, whereas the standard port's 110. Let's just test the connection. Okay, successfully connected to the POP3 server. We know that everything's good. So I'm going to say OK. Now, if we went and tried to go in here and we thought, you know, I'd rather use POP3 with SSL. You notice the port didn't change. We'd have to know that we need a port 995. Okay, so that's something you need to watch. Also, let's say there's a small error. Let's say you put this information, or there's a small error in the listing here. If you click Wizard again, it wipes out all the settings at this point in time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say OK, so the settings are wiped out to simplify things. I'm going to go in and I'm going to insert the information here with the variables we've got, because at the end of the day, this is how our script's going to look. Okay. Remember, you can't click Wizard. If you do and you hit OK, it's going to wipe all the settings out. We don't want that. And unfortunately, we can't test the connection after the fact. So you have to make sure things are OK. Actually, what I'm going to show you next here is actually going to test our connection for us. So let's go back underneath the commands. I'm going to click on the Create Table from Emails. Now, we earlier cleared the table up here for the table called Emails. So that's the table I'm going to select here. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to run this spot. Oops, I'm going to finish all the nodes. You're going to get that error quite often. It's not really an error. It's kind of telling you finish up what you're doing before you run. Okay, let's take a look at the debugger now. Now we have a table here with 2 rows and 6 columns. In row 0 is this email here. In row 1 is this email here. And basically what's happening is the email is being stored, its various parts, in different columns within the row. Okay, so what would happen is email 0 would be row 1, but column 0 would be, let's say, it would look like that. So that would be my column 0, without the column 0, of course. And column 1 would be Ubot guy, etc., etc., etc. Now, something else I want you to recognize as well. Whenever you collect emails from an email account, the oldest email is in row 0. Let's take a look at the timestamps here. The timestamps are in column 3. It's on the 18th of December 2012. And in row 1, it's the 19th of December. So your newest email will be at the very bottom, or at the maximum row that is created, whereas your oldest email is sitting in the earliest row. When we get into other commands, which I'm going to show you, knowing which row your email is sitting in is vitally important. So we can see here that there's these emails here. Now what we could do is we could then use this table of emails and then verify the emails by using a few commands. Once the table is loaded, what we could do is run an if statement. Within the if statement, what we would say, we would want to look at, let's look at the debugger here again. If column 0, or let's say we want to look for the confirmation, there it is, column 2 has this information. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to open up my fancy dancy notepad. I'm going to paste that information in there because we're going to need that in a second. We're going to count through this, and you're going to see that we're going to count through it in a second. I've actually got to have some sort of counter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a set command. I'm going to say row counter equals 0. Underneath the qualifier functions, there's a contains command. That's what we need. So the contains command says if the text, this text here, contains this text here, then it's true. And underneath the variable functions, we're going to go to a new command here, table cell. Now the table cell command is actually going to give us the information sitting in a particular cell in the table. So let's say if we said row 0, column 0, the information that would be restored from this table would be this information from here, because that's the cell being referenced from 0, 0. So we're going to go to table cell, because this is the text we're searching, and then we're going to use the row counter, and that was column, I think it was column 3, yeah, no, column 2. Okay, and if it contains the text, there we go. Now, what I want to show you too is you're every once in a while going to see this little box that has the double quoted symbol in there. Now, if we had a set of double quotes somewhere in here, or a quote, we want to click this, and what the system would do is it would put this into quotes saying, ignore the double quotes inside. That's not the end of the search criteria. Grab the whole thing. Okay, that's what that means. We're going to say OK. If it contains it, then what we want to do is we want to load that, do a load HTML. Again, this is a command you haven't seen yet. I'll show you where that lives. Under commands, browser functions, is load HTML. Now what load HTML does is it lets us put any code we want into here, and it'll load it up into here. It'll show us in the box here. So I'm going to go back to our box here, and just to make sure that it's going to show us what we want, I'm going to build the semblance of what is going to be shown in a web page. Okay, so this here is just code telling this box here that this is a web page being displayed. I'm probably going a little bit overboard, but I just want to be sure that the actual code is going to be shown properly. So I'm going to grab this code, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it into here. Now, if I was typing this in manually, let me show you a little something. Let's say I have to type a piece in here manually. Let's say I have to type in Freddy goes to the, and let's say I want to do a carriage return. If I just hit enter, it's going to close that box on me. What you want to do is you right click, edit. When you want to do a carriage return, hit the shift key, hold the shift key on your keyboard, and then hit enter. And that overcomes that problem. Okay, just a little something you should know. But here, we want to put in the contents from that from the table that's within the body of our email. Okay, so let's just look for that. Okay, let's go back to the debugger again. Okay, it looks like the contents for this particular site is going to be in column 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to click here, and we're going to do the table cell command once again under parameters. table cell. I'm going to drop it right in there. I'm going to tell it to use the emails. Which row? It's going to be using the row counter that we had used before. And it's going to be column 5. Now you can see from this other email, column 4 here is being populated, but not here. Okay, so there's the email. Now column 5 is populated too. By the looks of it, column 4 is the text version of the body of an email, whereas column 5 is the HTML version body of an email. Okay? If you don't know what that is, I'm going to ask you just to search Google on that one, because you can send emails as straight text or as an HTML version. Straight text is very plain, very simple, doesn't have a lot in it, as you can see here. Just has the message, whereas the email version or the HTML version has everything in it. Has all the coloring, all the styling, etc., etc., etc. For our example though, column 5 is what we want, and it has everything we need there. So I'm just going to say column 5 for this particular email. Oh, get myself in the right place. I'm going to say OK and OK. Now, what I wanted to do next, I'm going to have to actually step this robot through so I can actually fill in the commands. So what we're going to do is, because I actually have to get this to show up here to do the next step. So I'm going to do a stop, or actually I'm going to do a pause script. I'm going to drag it in there. Okay, so we're missing just one more thing here, and that's a loop statement. We want to be able to loop through all the different rows within the table. So loop, number of cycles is going to be the total rows of the table. Okay, and it's the table emails. We're going to take our if statement and just drop, oh, I have to actually close it. Sorry, give me a second. It's okay. I'm going to drop that in there. And we have to make sure, because we want to be able to loop through each and every entry, we have to increment our row counter after every check. So we're going to do increment below the if statement, row counter. Okay. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. So we got our all information in. We put the box in, we clear the table, we open up the connection to the mail server to get POP3 mail. We have the settings in here. We create the table for emails. We set the row counter to 0 so we can jump through and loop through the different rows. Let's give this a shot. Okay, so I know that this is the email that we want. Okay, so there's the information. I'm going to stop it here so I can continue on doing what I need to do. What I can do is I can now grab this link and drag it into here and say OK. So it's going to look for the inner text within here that says please confirm the email by clicking here. Now I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say run node. And you can see worked 100%, exactly what we wanted. Okay, and this would let us confirm our row right away. Now what I'm going to do too is I'm going to show you another little trick here. I'm going to create a list, because we're going to want to clear out any emails we've confirmed after the fact. Emails to delete. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add item to list, emails to delete, and I'm going to put in the row counter. Okay. And duplicates don't matter because we shouldn't have any duplicates. We're going to say OK. So what's going to happen now is our robot's actually going to count and catch any emails that are duplicated. So now let's run the robot with all the email that's in place. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that we have all our email on that. I'm going to put a pause halfway through so we can actually see what's going on. I'm going to stick a pause right here, and I'm going to run it. Okay, let's look at the debugger here. So we still have 2 emails in our system because we haven't deleted anything yet. Okay. You know something? I don't want to delete that email just yet because I want to show you the other method before we do delete it. Actually, no, we're not going to be deleting anything yet. So I'm going to say run. It's going to run through, and it should have underneath our emails to delete, create one item, which is row 0, and that correlates directly to this email that we have to delete here. And you can see here, it didn't pick up anything in the actual column 2, which is a test email. It's a different title, so it couldn't find anything in the email to delete. Like I said, there's a little more work to this way to do it, but it's a really easy way to actually confirm your emails. And you'll have to set this up for every site that you set up that you're going to use to sign up with. And what we could do after this now, after it's run through, is we could jump outside of this box here, and we can run another loop. Oh no, this is going to have to be done inside the mail folder as well, because we're actually still handling the mail. So we would run another loop here. I'm going to show you the commands that are going to go in, but I'm not going to run it because I actually want to run the commands, the other commands that we're going to be using to accomplish the same task. Okay, so we would do number cycles really quick here. I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to put the commands in place. Okay, it's fewer commands than I thought, so I'm just going to pick it up again here. So I created a loop statement. I said loop the list total, emails to delete, because we have one in here. Okay, and it's got a spot 0, has 0 in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the command underneath the commands folder for the emails, delete email. We slide it into the loop, and the position we tell it is the next list item, emails to delete. So that would fill in the position of 0. Remember I said to you it's really important to remember the order of the table here. This is why it's important. Every time our Ubot will look at the emails, it's always going to refresh the rows based upon the age of the email when they are received. So the oldest email, and that's why the oldest email is 0, not the newest, but the oldest. So you always know that the newest email is going to be the very bottom. So if you happen to get email in between commands, it's not going to break anything. Our bot here is now going to collect those emails, and it's going to go through and it's going to delete them. Now I'm going to set this and say okay, but you know something? I am not going to run this. I am actually going to put a stop command just before it, because I don't want this run. Actually, no, I'm going to take the stop command out, and I'm actually going to take this completely out of the loop here. I'll put the stop below, because I don't want to run this just yet. This is a way that I can guarantee every time you access your email, it's just going to work. Now, if you want to, you can do one more step here. You can actually, and this is a nice way of doing it this way too, you know that you've got a thank you page, then it's been confirmed. You can now add in the text after you've you've clicked on it, and then what you can do below here is you can add that item to list, and then below here you can actually have a look at the page and see, using an if statement, see did you get it confirmed. You know, your email's already been confirmed or a thank you, then you know that that you've actually confirmed that one, and you can actually put a flag into the system. Now the other way to confirm your emails is going to do close to the same thing, but it's much faster, it's much easier, but there's no way to confirm if you've actually confirmed any emails or verified any email addresses. So, I've talked to a lot of different guys who've coded with these commands, and they all agree with me. Learning how to use these commands the way I've shown you, and in future videos how I can show you how to do it invisibly, is the way to go. But when you're relatively new, there's another really slick command that lets you do the same thing very quickly. I'm actually going to open up another window here to do this same thing. I'm going to drag over the connect to mail server again. I'm going to manually just put the settings in here. Okay, I'm going to test the connection, make sure I didn't make a spelling error. That's okay. Now I'm separating this into its own tab just for the sake of training you and showing you it. It should not be separated. I should be using the same format as I did over here to, grab the email addresses or have them stored somewhere in the system and then put variables in, because it's not very scalable. But for the sake of example, this is going to be quick, dirty, and easy. Now there's another command here called verify emails. I can drop that in here. Now this command sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, as you can see. This is one of those times it's not wanting to work. What I'll try to do is I'll try to capture a little more video and tag it in at the very end here with this command working, but at this moment in time it's just not playing ball with us. Okay, so I'm just on another computer here and I'm going to show you this command working. So I've got all the settings put in place, and I've dropped in the verify emails, and I just have to run the wizard. Okay, so now it's actually connecting. And what we can do is we can actually look. Now you can notice again the oldest email sitting on the bottom. So you got to just watch that, okay? Now the nice thing about this command is, and this is what makes it so snappy, is the fact that I can select an email. It looks for the links in the email automatically for us. Some brilliant logic in this. So we can see here that it's found an email link. We can use the subject as is. Sometimes the subject will have your name as well, and we'll want to use wildcard, but here we don't want to. We see here for each one of these we can use regular expressions or wildcards. Now wildcards, the simplest wildcard to use is the asterisk or star. Now there's only one email link in this email, so it's selected the correct email link. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything right up to the and sign here. Okay. Whenever you have a string, an HTML string, it's going to start with a question mark, and these are variables that are being passed to the website for you to confirm the account. So the first thing we're going to do here, because this is like a key, or it's a key token with the email address. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a star in there. Okay, so it'll always find any link, and we also have to put a star in here. Now, could I put a star for the whole thing? Absolutely, but I really try hard only to use wildcards with things that definitely need to be taken out. That way, another link, because sometimes some websites will put in links that are false that you don't want to grab. Okay, and so you want to grab the link as tightly as possible. And we're going to say okay. And now there's three options we have here. We can delete the processed verification emails, all emails, or none of them. And I'm going to leave it and let it process the whole thing here. So I'm going to say okay, I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to run this. And there you go, that's how you use the command. The other failure of this command is, because it's a command, it's not really presenting you with anything in return. Did you actually verify anything? Did you actually get an email? You don't really know. So the verify emails command is really great when you just need to quickly verify emails. So I hope you've enjoyed that you've seen everything we're going to do with emails. We've done we didn't do send emails because we don't need it. We've learned how to use the connect mail server, the verify emails, create table from emails, and how to use the tables to actually look at the emails, how to decipher the information that's coming out of it. Oldest emails always row 0, etc., etc., etc. We've looked at the and also the delete email, and we use that command in conjunction with the other command to actually grab the emails or to delete the emails. And the confirm emails, we use this command here. We can loop through by creating a list and then just have it delete those emails.